Mr. Andrew Banks. How are you, sir?
Good. Overall pretty good. I will admit I have been out like yesterday and today with some flu-like symptoms. So bad news on that standpoint, but good news is that the shop's running pretty solid without me. So it's
Nice.
kind of see it from both sides. Kind of give the shop a test with me just randomly gone and see how well they're doing. And past 2 days they've been great. So most of our installers are off early actually because they got everything done for the week. Got some a little bit of kickstart to the weekend. So yeah, pretty solid.
Nice. That's the goal. That's what we all should be striving for.
Yeah. So, how about yourself? Doing well over there?
Yes, definitely.
Cool.
I've actually missed the cold. My son actually started daycare about a month ago, and it's been nonstop catching something.
Oh yeah. Oh,
So
I don't
this
have
is the
kids.
first time everybody got it except for me.
Yeah. I say I don't have kids, but I'm not looking forward to that because I think that's the scenario everyone talks about is it's just sickness being passed through everybody.
Yeah, they got to get it through their system, learn to deal
Mhm.
with it.
Mhm. Mhm.
So tell me a little bit about you. How'd you start, and what was how did you end up starting Performance Wraps?
Yeah. So to give a little bit of a backstory, I started a lawn care company when I was in high school. That lawn care company actually got lettered by Performance Wraps. It's probably giving a little too much credit, acting like it was a real established company at that point. It really was just like someone's kind of part-time side hustle. Like there were no hours of operation. It was like if you drove by and his truck was there, they were open. But most of the time when you drove by, there was no one there. And I was young, naive. I was about 20 at the time, getting my newest truck lettered. And guy was talking about wanting to retire and exit the industry. So I was just like, oh yeah, sure, I'll buy this. Like my lawn care company's running well, so I'll just run both companies. And it didn't go super smoothly. It was like a 2 year long like legal battle, essentially losing everything. But like at 20, losing everything isn't a whole lot. But yeah, essentially getting into it was just through that opportunity, as I thought was this awesome opportunity to take on running two businesses, turned into 2 years of kind of a nightmare nonetheless of trying to run both and still survive and learn how to wrap a car. I didn't know how to wrap a car. And then just kind of just through grit and I don't know, just fear of failure, just like failure was not an option. So it was like all nighter after all nighter to make things happen. Um, was able to eventually get the previous owner completely out of the picture, liquidated the lawn care, and then I would say realistically about 3 years ago, maybe 3 or 4 years ago, is when I was able to actually fully focus on Performance Wraps and actually build it.
Okay, nice. Did you have
So yeah,
employees at
that's
the lawn care company?
I'm sorry.
Did you have employees at the lawn care company as you were
Yeah.
making this transition?
At the lawn care company at that time, which keeping lawn care, you think keeping wrap employees is hard. Lawn care is a whole nother league of keeping employees and how difficult it is. So I did have employees. I had about two crews, so I fluctuated between 2 and 4 guys at any given time. But then as during that like kind of nightmare of the story went on, my guys ended up leaving to where I'd only maybe have one or two, and it was pretty much mow grass all day and then wrap cars all night, and then mow grass all day, wrap cars all night, and that was at least a good year. A good year of my life was planning the sun up to sundown so that I could mow grass to help pay the bills over here, but then hurry up and get the car wrapped so I could try to make payroll over there. It was the waters were very muddied of just money going all over the place from one business to the other. Whatever bill or expense or payroll or rent, whatever was coming up, it was just where could I pull the money from to try to pay that bill. So yes,
Nice.
yeah, had employees, but throughout that time they kind of crumbled, and then that's what led to us just liquidating the lawn care. So we just kind of sold off the client list, sold off the the mowers. We didn't like package a beautiful business and sell it. We just liquidated it.
Nice. What was it that you saw that you said, hey, performance wraps is where I need to focus? Was there a turning point there?
Yeah, so my wife and I now run the business together. And at that time, she had come on to run the business with me, but definitely in the first couple of years, like she was just holding on and trying to help as much as she could. As far as now, she has just an equal seat at the table and of like running the business. But back then, she essentially just like worked for performance reps wherever I needed her to be. And she had brought up pretty much right when we had won the lawsuit to actually have performance reps, like 100%, no one's like coming after us anymore. She was like, let's make a pros and cons list of lawn care and the wrap shop and figure out what makes most sense, because I was losing money going and mowing grass. Like just the margins on wrapping versus mowing grass. Margins on wrapping is bigger. So we literally sat down and made a like on a notebook sheet of paper, and was like pros and cons of these businesses. And I mean, the wrap shop, the margins were higher. The personnel, like the employees, like the people that are passionate in this industry, were better as compared to the people that are mowing grass for a living. No hate on them, but as a generality, they're a little bit rougher around the edges, harder to work with as compared to the wrap shop side. And then there's also seasons. So for 3-4 months out of the year in lawn care, you're just completely dead. It's not like you're slow, you're dead. So wrapping is different. Obviously, you have slow seasons, but you're never zero. So yeah, outside of just like I get a better tan while mowing grass all day, that was the only pro. Was I would be out in the sun as compared to inside a building. But yeah, that was what made the decision. Was Tanner and I literally wrote a pros and cons, and it just made sense to focus on the wrap shop.
Nice. I want to double back to something you said, if you don't mind talking about it, the lawsuits.
Yeah.
So was this something that when you came into the business, it was already something the previous owner had started, or if you don't mind going into detail?
Yeah. So the lawsuit was with the previous owner directly.
Okay.
To say it as cleanly or nicely as I can put it, I had entered a contract with the previous owner. It was a seller finance. Like I put money up front, seller financed the rest. Our lawyer was sending us the contract in a Google Doc. At that time, 6 years ago, I didn't, and keep in mind, like I was a lawn care guy, so like I wasn't really tech savvy. I didn't realize a Google Doc was editable, and what we were agreeing to back and forth on this Google Doc contract, we were nitpicking like small stuff, like where the office furniture was going to be, like whether it was his or mine kind of thing, like stuff that didn't matter. And then he was like, looks good. We'll meet in the morning for to meet with the notary. Showed up the next morning. He already had them printed, like his copy, my copy. And I was like, all right, let's head over to the bank, get them signed, and move on. Well, what I should have done was then reread every word of the contract, and I didn't because I've already read it like 8 times. So anyway, just neglect on my part. And then 30 days later, he came in pretty much saying, you shorted me $3,000, and 2 things in the contract that had been edited, being the interest rate instead of per year was changed to per month. And then the commission part was not just his sales, but all prospects needed to go through him, which would mean he would get commission on every single job.
That's dirty.
Yeah, so pretty much was just like, piss off, I'll see you in court. I did not realize how expensive of a sentence that was. But yeah, that was pretty much what got me into that. And then just, I think the perceived notion of me at that time was probably just some young, dumb kid with daddy's money, was kind of what I heard was being said about me. But what he failed to understand was I might have been young and dumb, but the money was 100% like earned. Like there was no daddy's money. It was like all my work ethic and just sweat put into every dollar I had. So I wasn't about to just walk away from, my life savings at that point had only been, 5 years working, but every dollar I had saved, I'd then put down on buying this business. So I wasn't about to just walk away from it. We could go back and forth. In hindsight, I think lessons learned were valuable, but it definitely would have been cheaper for me to just buy a printer and start my own business as far as how much debt that I had to take on to survive. But if you look at it from an education standpoint, I learned a lot of life lessons very early that now, just 6 years post that, I feel like when I'm in business settings and talking with other business owners, I kind of already am at a higher understanding of business level, just because of I went through the rock bottom really early. So
Yeah, contracts are important.
yeah.
I mean, I made my mistakes. That's how I ended up getting duped into the military for 10 years, signing
Yeah.
contracts and not reading them. So, as far as performance reps now, how many employees you have? Uh, any more detail as far as like printers? How many reps you're going through? Kind of what you focus on?
Yeah. So we are like a very dedicated to wrap shop. So there are wrap shops that do, signs and then wraps as part of it, or they do the lift kits and the aftermarket wheels and wraps as part of it. We are kind of a niche shop where we are just strictly wrap. That's all we do. And then with that comes like the vinyl lettering, stuff like that as well. But if it's not vinyl, we don't deal with it. And then as far as team goes, so we have 4 installers, 1 front desk, and then we have 3 freelance designers that work every week with us. They work from home, whatever state they're in, so they're freelance there. And then both my wife and I can pretty much run every position, but at this point, we kind of manage every position rather than owning any one position, if that makes sense.
Nice.
And
And how
we should
long?
be, I was gonna say,
Go
we
ahead.
should be onboarding 2 more installers probably within the next 30 days.
Nice. Do you train all your installers, or do you look for
Yeah.
people?
No, no,
Okay.
no. I honestly, at this point, I prefer untrained. Now, granted,
Nice.
if someone came in that was really well trained, that would be awesome. But realistically, especially from where we're at in Dayton, Ohio, there's not a ton of trained installers in our area. So it's culture first. So you're going to pass our culture checks before we even think about hiring you. But everyone that comes in here doesn't know. Most of them don't even know how to hold a squeegee. We have to like literally teach them the fundamentals of like how to squeegee and just train them from there. And it seems to be going pretty well, honestly.
How long roughly does your training last before you have them actually working on vehicles?
So we've been making that's one of our biggest focus points right now is like shortening that timeline. When it first started, I mean, it would take 1.5 to 2 years before someone was fully trained. Then we got it down to about 9 months, and now we're really trying to get it down to like 3 months or less. So we're putting a lot of time and money into that kind of research and development of our training program.
Nice. With that said, so you started this business 2018, is that correct?
Yeah, I think end of 2017, but yeah, about that time.
So you were able to build a business that runs itself in the last roughly 5 years, a little bit more than 5 years,
Yeah.
through COVID also. Anything that you had in place that helped you get through that, or anything you had to implement during that time to make sure you kept that growth going?
Man, I wish I could say like we had this one special secret sauce or something, but really it was just grit, and like just the we refuse to fail. So if that mean I had to, be at work at Sunday at 2 in the morning, I was here at Sunday at 2 in the morning working. For instance, with the COVID thing, we had to get very creative. It was actually I don't know for fact, but someone called on us saying that we were open when we shouldn't, like trying to challenge us being essential. So they were trying to shut us down. And well, I started reading the 14-page packet of like what makes you essential. And part of it was, you remember the signage everyone had to have, like 6 feet apart, and all the floor graphics that went everywhere. So within like 24 hours of us getting the packet of proving that we are essential, on top of we were doing work for government, like agencies, like police cars, and like we were serving the essential industries. Within 24 hours, we had it up on our website, and you could buy all of those COVID signs and floor graphics from us to our website. So that was a lot of just creative problem solving of like, just every day was another obstacle. Like that was an obstacle of us about to get shut down. And I read through all the packet, and all that packet kept saying like you had to have all this signage. So I was like, I sell the signage, so therefore I'm essential, because everyone that's essential has to have the signage. And it worked. It allowed us to stay open. I don't know if that was the only thing, but they didn't come knock on our door again to shut us down. So to get us through COVID and to get us through is really just a lot of grit and a lot of just refuse to fail. Like I said, I destroyed my health from a sleep standpoint. Like, I mean, it was like one all-nighter a week was like I was coasting. Like it was 2 to 3 all-nighters every week for 2 to 3 years, like straight. This is probably, knock on wood, this is probably the first year that I'm not going to have to pull an all-nighter.
Nice.
That was just, I don't know, just relentless to making it work. So yeah, I really don't have like a secret sauce. It's just grit and refuse to fail.
So with that, coming into the second half of 2023, living is expensive. Do you see anything that you probably did then that you can advise people that are kind of in that same position now, going into people not wanting to spend money because everything else is expensive, going into this economic landscape we're in now?
Say that one more time for me. I'm sorry.
Sorry, I kind of rambled there for a second. So this year, I mean, we've had increases in prices on everything from materials to living expenses. With that happening, do you think that anything that you did besides the COVID signs was probably going to help you or help others kind of moving into this time where people don't want to spend as much money?
So I would say so for me with business, everything is a math problem essentially. So like your material cost, your labor cost, all of that should be factored into your sales price. So like if material is going up, then your sales price is going to have to go up a little bit with like labor and everything that's happening. Where like McDonald's workers are getting $20 an hour or some bullshit for a minute there. I kind of refused to budge, honestly, and it hurt. Like I wasn't able to hire as easily during that when people knew they could go to McDonald's and make more than working for us. But I knew, and I would tell these people, I'm very transparent with it, of like, it's going to crash eventually, or McDonald's is just going to pay for robots to come in and take all those positions. Like, so inevitably, it's all going to flip the other way, and I'm going to have to fire everybody that I just brought on at an obnoxious rate, when instead I could keep my labor at a good, healthy living, but like not to the point that it like bankrupts the company. And then your material cost should be a set percentage of what your sales price is. And then as far as for any of the people out there, it's like say they're just doing the color change, that's probably going to be the part of our industry that feels it the most going into like what's probably going to be the economic correction that we're inevitably going into right now. The color change is going to get hit the hardest for sure, because that's just a luxury spend. Like no one has to change the color of their car. And we do a good amount of commercial. So I would say for any of the shops kind of looking forward into the next I mean, COVID was a little bit of a crash, and then stimulus checks came out and it kind of saved it, but it looks like we're getting ready to market correct. I would recommend trying to figure out how you're going to do commercial. Or if you're a shop that does all the other stuff, figure out what of that other stuff is a little bit more recession proof, is what I would recommend. But we have a large part of our business is commercial that we can fall back on hard times, because the skilled trades are always going to need advertising. It's an advertising expense for them, not a luxury expense. So
That makes sense. Businesses always need us.
yeah. Now I do understand it's boring though. So like nobody wants to wrap the plumbing van, but everybody wants to wrap the cool car and the cool color. But
I mean,
the
I think
cool
there's some of
car,
us out there, because I mean, I do designing myself also. So
yeah,
being able to design and then install something, I get enjoyment out of that more than the color change stuff now.
yeah, it makes sense. Yeah, if it was my decision, I would love to just be only a commercial shop. I like talking to my business owners. But I understand to build what I'm trying to build and to hire the guys that I'm trying to hire. No one wants to be a rapper and only do commercial vans. They want to do the cool cars. So a lot of we sell the color change stuff all the time, and it's really to just keep everybody happy.
Yeah, I kind of did the same thing where we're only now pushing marketing for commercial wraps. We've kind of got rid of the window tint. We'll do two fronts on the van if we're wrapping it. But we're not taking like full window tint jobs anymore. Same thing with paint protection. Like if it's someone I know that I've worked with before, I'll do it. But essentially eliminating that and just kind of cutting down on everything and focusing on the commercial wraps. But if people come for a color change, we're not going to just say no.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So, do you think for somebody that wants to start a business, is now a good time? Should they wait?
Man, I don't think any time is ever a good time to start a business. So yeah, I think it depends. It very much. I don't have a blanket answer to that. It would be like a per individual. I definitely would recommend, unless you just have a lot of cash saved up, like don't just jump in. Like go learn the trade first, learn the industry, and then go start the business. But then ultimately understand what your goal is before you start. I think would be a good plan. And what I mean by that is like, what are you starting your own business for? Like, are you doing it because you just want the Lambos and the mansions? Because sure, you can get that, but that takes a lot more skill than like, I want to run my own business to work 35 hours a week as like a side hustle, because then it's not really your own business. You're probably just kind of a glorified freelancer. But like if you're doing it for that lifestyle, then that's perfect. So yeah, I would recommend anyone that's wanting to start a business. There's never a perfect time to do it, but understand why you're doing it. I get that a lot of people ask me like, oh, I want to go start my own business, and then when they start talking to me, they're like, they don't like sales. They'll tell me like 3 other things they don't really like doing. They just like doing the work. And I'm like, being a business owner is not like, if you're running your business really well, you're probably not actually doing much of the work anymore. You're running a business that is doing all of the work.
What does Dave Ramsey call it? The CEO is the chief everything officer.
Yeah.
You have to start just doing everything.
Yeah.
But I've actually been reading a book, The E-Myth, and kind of touches on what you were just talking about, where go into it with a plan, where you see it when it's fully employed. And then, yes, you're still going to have to take over everything in the beginning, but you have that plan to start offloading some of your responsibilities to the next person.
Yeah.
That's one thing I've struggled with. Yeah, that's one thing I've struggled with. It's one thing I feel like a lot of newer businesses don't realize. It's
Mhm.
we get so stuck in doing the work, installing everything, being a good installer that we forget you have to be a good business owner too.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and there's nothing wrong with like the E-Myth will talk about like being a technician. There's nothing wrong with being a phenomenal technician. Like some people are just better being the number 2 or the number 3 or the number 7 at a company instead of being the number 1, the one that started the company. Um, and I think the inevitable market correction, the recession that we were talking about earlier, is going to showcase that a little bit, honestly. The guys that are trying to start a business that probably are a better fit as being like the number 3, like a really solid anchor and growing a company instead of running their own. I think the recession will kind of start showing that a little bit because we've been in an era of like no one can fail,
Yeah.
and with the correction, it's going to cause some failure. And I think it's going to showcase that entrepreneurship isn't easy, and that maybe instead of starting your own thing, you should just partner with or be the number 3 in this other company and help grow it. And I think we'll see a lot of that.
And I think that could be a good thing too. I
Yeah.
mean, people that can do the work going into shops that need people,
Hmm.
um, I think that would be a good thing.
Yeah, and being the number 1, being the guy that starts the business, I mean that's hard. Like you have to sell, you have to be HR, you have to be the marketing, you have to be the installer, you have to be the designer. Like that's a lot of different hats and skill sets you have to start. Um, where say someone is just a phenomenal person at like 1 or 2 of those hats, well they can join, like the phenomenal installer can join up with a phenomenal designer that can join up with a phenomenal sales rep, but now you have a team of 4 or 5 that are all very good at their own position, all growing the thing together. And I think that makes more sense in most cases than the number 1 trying to do all of those positions because it's extremely difficult.
Yeah, yeah, that's kind of where I'm at in my journey of as a business owner is
Yeah.
like figuring out that hey, I don't have to do everything. I just have to
Yeah.
set it up properly.
Now I will say to the people listening to this and they're like, screw this guy, I want to be the number 1, I'm going to start my own thing. Like if then do it, because my trigger was actually a Mark Cuban interview, which made me drop out of college and then just start my own thing. Was they were interviewing Mark Cuban and asked him if what he thought on college, and he said everyone should go to college. And I'm watching the interview and I'm like, screw this. Like college didn't build his career. Like he doesn't need college. Why do I need college? I'm not going to college. And then I'm talking over the interview. And then he restates the question and goes back to the interviewer and is like, to anyone that actually like listened to me and saying that they need to go back to college should go back to college. The people, the true entrepreneurs aren't going to listen to me anyway. And I thought that was pretty funny. And right then, I like clicked over from YouTube to Sinclair, which is the community college I was in. Dropped all my classes and dropped out.
Nice.
So yeah, there's going to be the true like to the core entrepreneurs that aren't going to listen to me anyway, and those are the ones that should be starting their own business.
I feel like there's two thoughts on that, two frames of thought on that too. Like, I'm with you. Like, I didn't go to college. I don't feel like what you're going to gain in the classroom is going to be great. But at the same time, I feel like a lot of these successful people made connections with people, networked in their college years that helped them later down the road.
Yeah.
So it definitely, I mean, I can see it from both ends. I think there is some positives there as far as networking and
Yeah,
meeting people.
I think it's just a matter of what you want in life, and then ultimately it's so from like a lifestyle and a money standpoint, it's like you have to be very uh, clear on what you're wanting and then how to create it. And I'll give you an example here. It's like my own mom, for example. All of my entire time growing up, never made more than like 30,000 a year, but she just saved her money and saved her money and saved her money. and then reinvested it into real estate, started getting some rentals, and then she's like not even 50 yet, already retired off of passive income and will gross more a month than she made all year, like in her 20s. Essentially, when I was growing up, she had me early. So like it's if you're going to college and everything else because you're trying to get that bigger and bigger account, it really doesn't matter how much money you make. It matters how well you manage it. Because that's ultimately what it's like. Should I go to college or not? You're really just asking, is college going to get me a higher salary or not, right? Like that's really the question.
No,
And it,
that also goes back to having a plan. I mean, she obviously planned this and made it happen to where she wanted to be in the end.
yeah, yeah. So it really doesn't. I mean, within a certain standard, it really doesn't matter how much you make. It matters how much you are, storing away to reinvest, and then how well are you reinvesting it. Um, so yeah, that's ultimately what matters. Depending on what you're going to college for, you may or may not actually need it. If you're going to be a vet or a doctor, you probably need to go to college. But
Speaking of reinvesting, let's talk about reinvesting in your business. Besides like salaries and people, is there an amount that you try and reinvest as far as back into your business to help grow it?
um, yeah, in the early years, all of it. Yeah, especially in the like I would say just like now, even now I'm not even taking money out like personally. It's like my bare minimum bills outside of the business are being taken care of, but there's not like an abundance of extra that I'm taking home. Even now in year 6, I'm reinvesting as much as I can back into it. Um, so yeah, it's my answer to how much should you be reinvesting back into your business from where I'm at in a startup, like first 5 years, all of it. There's anything left over, it should be getting reinvested because I think in those beginning years is definitely the most crucial um, because you can reinvest into a new printer or a new position, develop a new position and hire and pay for that. So
Another thing to touch on that is get a good accountant and roll some of your normal expenses into your business, make them business expenses.
yeah, you should be making everything that you can legally make a business expense should be a business expense, like 100%.
Yeah, that's where I try and tell everyone, don't do it yourself. Get an accountant
Hmm.
because they will tell you, yes, you can do this. No, don't do that. Um,
Yeah,
Anything
yeah,
they can do for you, they're gonna because it only benefits them.
yeah. There's a few things to cheap out on. There's several things that I've cheaped out on early that I wish I didn't. CPA is definitely one of them.
Yeah,
I should have gotten a I do now. I do now. I have a very good CPA now that gets me monthly profit and loss statements. So every month I can see where our money's at, where we spent it, all of it. Um, I didn't do that early on. I wish I would have done that, for the past 6 years. I've only had that for the past year. But I was trying to cheap out on CPAs. I was only paying $200 a month for a CPA that wasn't giving me any results. So I now pay $500 a month for a CPA, but I get monthly P&Ls, very good sound advice. So yeah, I would pay for a good CPA as early as you possibly can. And that'll allow you to make better decisions too. Because a lot of my decisions in the early years were just gut feelings of like, I feel like this makes sense. But now, like for instance, I told you we were working with freelance designers and we were contemplating like, do we want to keep doing this freelance thing or do we want to bring someone full time inside our building? And I started doing the math, and it just didn't make sense. We didn't quite carry a full time designer position yet, so doing the freelance model makes sense. I wouldn't have been able to do that if I didn't have the numbers. Because
yeah.
before it was just a feel on the pulse, but when we had that question, I had the answer in 12 minutes. Was it to pull up my P&Ls for the past 3 months, correlated of how much I've been paying on design, what would it cost to actually bring on a full-time designer, look at the cost difference, and just okay, it doesn't make sense. Let's keep running our freelance model. Where if I didn't have those P&Ls, I could have made a bad decision there.
And do they break it down per service too for you?
I'm sorry?
I said, do they break down the reports by service too?
So when they give me, are you talking about the profit and loss statements?
Not just profit and loss, but any other reports that they give you. Like we have the option to break everything down by how we invoice it in QuickBooks. So whether it's a partial wrap, full wrap, commercial, color change.
I'm sure if I asked for that or to categorize it differently, we could, but I just look at like top line of what came in.
Okay.
So whether it's lettering, partial, or wraps, it doesn't really matter. That's just top line. And then obviously the expenses are all different. But
Yeah, that's one thing I try and look at myself and understand a little bit better.
yeah, ours is just the top line number. I mean, on average, I would say we're doing at least 2, sometimes up to 3 or 4 full reps a week. It
Nice.
just kind of depends. The more full reps we have, the less smaller jobs we have that week. So it just
You said you had
fluctuates.
3 installers?
I'm sorry?
You said you had 3 installers?
4, yeah.
4? It's a good
Yeah,
workflow.
I'm sorry?
I said that's a good workflow.
Yeah, and 2 of them are still like developing. So 2 are solid, like top tier installers. The other ones are still developing. But yeah, no, it works well. And our scheduling model, which was a huge win for us, like when I started scheduling this way, I started scheduling based off of labor percentages. So like figure out what labor percentage you want. Um, so like, say you want your labor percentage to be 35%. Well, then you just figure out if they're all full time, what does that cost? And then reverse math, like, okay, what does the gross revenue need to be if they're all full time at 35%? Does that make sense?
Yep.
And that's helped us a lot on scheduling to kind of help. So that's why I said sometimes it's 2, sometimes it's 4 reps, sometimes the weeks have more partials, sometimes they have more lettering. Doesn't really matter. We just have to hit that revenue goal so that everyone, gets paid full time.
Nice.
So
And do you have them each kind of, or at least the 2 guys that are solid, do you have them on their own vehicles or are they kind of tag teaming?
I try to tag team as much as possible. I see a much higher efficiency when I do the buddy system. That being said, sometimes I veer off of that. Like I have one guy that's teetering, like still developing, but like he may be getting ready to go to the next like level, I guess, like the next tier in our installer progression. So for the past 2 weeks, he's been by himself. Like here's the roll and here's the truck. Go install it. And the reason I'm not doing a buddy system with him is because when he's done with a piece, I want to fully critique it, and I don't want the other guy did that part. I want to like this truck is 100% done by you, so anything that's wrong is 100% your fault, and vice versa. If it's 100%, if it's a perfect truck, then that 100% you just produced a perfect truck, which is what we want.
Nice.
But yeah, I try to do the buddy system as much as I can. I try not to have one installer on one job. I try to have 2 installers on each job, and it just gets better results. It seems to go more efficient because if one guy's just dicking around on his phone while the other one's hustling, it kind of adds that peer pressure of like, oh man, I'm just on my phone and my coworker here is just running circles around me.
Yeah.
It keeps phones in pockets and everyone on task a little bit better.
Yeah, they can police themselves. You don't have to go out there and keep getting on somebody. They can kind of talk to each other there. Like, hey, get back on it. And then also, I mean, just thinking back from an installer standpoint, some days you just don't want to get on the ground and do that side skirt. It's an easy
Yeah.
piece, but you undo everything else. And having someone to tag team it with, like, hey, I'll take some of your normal work, you take some of this.
Yeah, and we have reviews as well. So we do like quarterly reviews with everyone. And one thing Tanner, my partner here, helped develop in that is like a peer review system. So they review their coworkers and like on all different types of categories. Like one of them being like kindness. Like you rate your coworkers on 1 to 5 of how kind they are. And it helps us find that. Like if someone is, constantly running away to the bathroom or like texting or just being a dick, in those reviews, we get to figure that out real fast.
Nice.
And it's helped us solve some culture problems of kind of like that, like someone just being mean to someone else, and then we did the review, and it's like you might be one of our best installers, but you're a dick. And in our conversation, it was like, I don't care how good you are. If I want 10 to 15 people to show up to work every day and no one wants to show up because you're a dick to them, I'm getting rid of you. And I know, I just made it very clear and pretty much was like, you have 3 months until the next reviews to fix it. And then in the next 3 months, he had like the highest rating of the kindness. So yeah, he was able to immediately fix it and be better about it. So yeah, it's helped.
That's awesome. I like that it actually made positive change instead of someone just quitting.
Yeah.
Because you do see that a lot now, the whole quiet quitting movement, and people
Hmm.
just, hey, I'm here to work, not be a good person. Um,
Yeah, and I think a lot of that will actually be solved. At least I can only speak internally of what's worked for us. Um, so uh, Tanner and I have a good partnership in the fact that like I'm bad cop, she's good cop for sure. Um, but then also like full transparency. So like if an employee is disgruntled with like a decision I've made, I don't just say like screw the employee and like move on. I'll pull them aside and be like, hey, this is the decision I have to make. This is where I'm coming from. This is like these are all the part of pieces of the puzzle that you don't see that me as the CEO and the owner that I have to manage, and this is why I made that decision. And that's helped a lot. And then again with those reviews, my number one question is always, what do you want to be when you grow up? Because I've had four at least four employees that have sat in my review and have told me they don't want to be here anymore. Like they have some type of career change they're wanting to do, or whatever the reason. Some are just getting out of like college is coming up. They're going to go into internship, whatever the reason. So it's like there's no point in me talking to this person about perfecting your corners because you don't like you're moving on in life. I wish everyone came here and this was their 40-year career, but I can't be naive. I have to understand that this is a stepping stone for most. So I think that's helped a lot where we're not, knock on wood, I guess, where we're not getting the quiet quitting. We actually we
nice.
have really good retention, but then also like I have people, like I have a guy that's leaving next month, or sorry, next week. He gave me his like 2 weeks, his 2 weeks, like over a month ago. And then I have a guy that's leaving at the end of the year. He told me in January, like he was leaving in November. So that's helped us a lot not get the quiet quitting because I operate as much as I can full on just a fully transparent model. So
Nice. Yeah, it sounds like your employees definitely want to do right by you. So,
yeah,
especially
and I
with the
try to do
notice,
right
like
by them. So and it's
that's
helped.
awesome.
Yeah, it's helped a
Um,
lot.
so with that said, where do you kind of see performance wraps in the next 2, 5, 10 years?
So the number one goal right now is just for this location to be, fully built and running itself. It's kind of my number one goal. Like I said, I literally came in to work to the like office today just to be on this podcast with you. But I didn't show up yesterday, and I haven't been here today. And the shops, I mean, other than a few text messages answering some questions here and there, I mean, they've held the fort down. They're doing pretty solid. So I think
Nice.
right now for performance reps, that's just the number one goal is being able for this location to run without me having to be in the building. That was when I said earlier to anyone starting a business, like you have to know what your goals are. And my goal was to build a business that operated without me. Because I'm not like a prideful or an ego person. Like I don't want performance wraps to be synonymous with Andrew Banks. I want performance wraps to be its own like standstill business. I don't want people to I want people to be like, Performance Wraps is a solid business. Go do work with them. I don't want them to be like, Andrew Banks is the only person you can talk to in that building, so go there and make sure you talk to him. It's like, no, we have good systems, people, culture built here that you come to Performance Wraps because Performance Wraps is the best, not just because Andrew Banks is behind the door. So yeah, that's the number one goal right now, is just to get this thing up to the point that it can go through the full system. Like it can get, the sales to quote, to the design and print, to the laminate and prep, to the vehicle prep, install, quality check at the end, delivered to the customer, final payment collected. The goal is for it to go through all of that process without me personally having to be a piece. Obviously, I'm still managing all the people and the systems that make that happen. But yeah, that's the number one goal of Performance Wraps right now, is to really have those strong systems and things in place that runs without me.
Nice. Is there any systems or programs that you use that kind of help facilitate this?
It's all, like Google Docs. We have a ton of stuff written out on like just Google Docs and forms and sheets and stuff like that.
Okay.
But yeah, just pretty much like anything you do, especially anything you do repetitively, should be on paper. And then the way I looked at business when I started it, because I was just like the guy on the futon in the back of the shop when it first started. So everything was me. Everything was just in my head. I did it all. And then when Tanner came in, the first thing she started doing, going position to position, was just getting it out of my head and onto paper. And then we were all just wearing hats. We were wearing all the hats. And when one of those hats became a full-time job, we would hire someone to run that full-time job and put everything out of our head on the paper. So it was like, here's your position and here is your packet of like how to run this position.
And that's another thing that the E-Myth touches on is make your ideal organization chart and put your name in every box and have a job description. And then slowly, one by one, start taking yourself out, putting someone else in it. You already have a job description. You've already worked in that position and you know how to do it. So you've already wrote that down and set the next person up for success.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. And we constantly sometimes I'll purposely put through running the business, I've become close friends with several of our customers. And I'll text them. I'll be like, hey, you're going through a new design process or with a new designer. Like, don't let them know that we're friends, but can you give me some feedback when you're done? Like, they seem like they fit our model, kind of like, did it go smoothly? So we're constantly, kind of mystery shopping ourselves by me just texting a customer friend that I made 4 years ago, and it's saying, hey, you just went through the process without me, how'd it go?
Nice.
And that's given us some good feedback too. And he's given us some good light of the people we have. We have a pretty solid crew right now.
Nice. Before we get off here, we're kind of running close to time. Just want to kind of touch on a couple more things. The industry as a whole, how do you kind of see not only your place in it, but any positives you see coming up within the next couple of years?
I see that the desire for higher quality seems to be coming, and I'm all for it on that. I will say 5-6 years ago when I got into the wrap business, at least in my local area, oh man, the quality was terrible.
Yeah. And that was still a lot. I mean, there was some training classes and certifications, but a lot of us were still learning trial by error.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's the biggest change that I'm seeing, and I'm a cheerleader on the sidelines for it. I'm all here for it. Is the higher quality output of the install, because I relay it to painting. If you see a car with a bad paint job, you go, oh, that's a bad paint job. Not paint is bad, just whoever sprayed that was bad. Well, with wraps, for the longest time, you just see wrapping as like a cheap, like shitty alternative to paint. And you would see a bad wrap and you just think wraps are bad, not that installer was bad. So trying to change that mindset with the training and the higher quality wraps that are being put out, I think is what I'm seeing happening. and I'm all for it. I wish some of these lower grade, white labeled materials would kind of go away, because that part is hard to fight,
Yeah,
because they do have some pretty solid colors, but it's like it's going to destroy your car, and it's only going to last 2 years.
yeah. And then they market it. I mean, they have really good marketing. So
Mm-hmm.
customers are asking for it. They say, hey,
Yeah,
I saw this on Facebook. I saw this wherever.
yeah, I'm honestly still on the fence of my decision there. We, at least for right now, have put uh, like a disclaimer page together for the kind of the shitty materials, of like, if you want that, then you need to sign off on this extra disclaimer page of it. We're pretty much saying we're not liable for anything. This will destroy your paint. It's not a matter of if, it will. And once they sign that, then we've done the job after that. Uh, but then to take an account off of first wrapping with, Avery 3M, Oracle, KPMF, like some of the top brands in the color change market, it takes like 3 times as long to install it. So from a business owner standpoint, the material, from a longevity and just destroying the car, like peeling the paint or clear coat when it's done, like that sucks. And then you're telling me it's going to take 3 times as long to wrap it. So now it's like I have to sell you a shittier product, but then charge you more because it
Yeah,
costs me more to install it. I don't know. We don't get a, once we give that disclaimer, we typically can push them towards a higher quality vinyl, and they're cool with that. But I don't know. I'm on the fence of whether even offering that stuff at all. Um, because I don't know. I'm very territorial of our brand, so it's like if I tell the customer it's going to destroy their paint, and I make them sign the form, and I tell them it's only going to last 2 years, but then they leave it on there for 4 years. It's clearly destroyed their car, and their friend says, "Who wrapped that?" "Oh, Performance Wraps wrapped it." Well, now it looks like we did a terrible job because they chose terrible material.
yeah.
So
I mean, that
yeah,
also goes to people just leaving anything on too long too.
yeah,
We've kind of started adding that, like, hey, 3 years, come let us look at it. Like
yeah,
we do a lot of sun, and especially for the business vehicles, like they are always outside. They're not garage. Um,
yeah.
so at 3 years, let's start. Just give me a call, stop by. We'll check it out, make sure everything's still looking good. We'll kind of give you our best estimate on when we should start looking into replacing it if it's not already there. And it just
Okay.
helps them in the long run.
Yeah, because you're in Florida, right? So your
Yes,
life expectancy like 3 years.
3 to 5 years is generally a lot at 5 years are either starting to crack or already cracked. And a
That
lot
makes
of
sense.
that depends on maintenance, obviously. Um, but we've seen 5 years that are cracked where I just recommend buy a new hood. And we've seen 5 years that are just starting to crack.
Yeah,
So,
that makes sense. Yeah, we're in Ohio, so the lifespan's a little bit longer. But we've already talked about like doing some marketing campaigns to the customers, like from 3 to 5 years ago, uh, to just pretty much remind them of like you're in the window of removal and rewrap. Like let's have a conversation.
yeah. Well, that's also one thing going into like something I've been trying to learn is automations and systems. Like now you can, if you're using spreadsheets or any of these like Airtable or SmartSuite, you can have it if you have your, and there's also the CRMs out there like Torque, where
Mhm.
a year, 2 years, whenever it is you need to reach out to someone after a job, it can automatically either send them an email or automatically give you a notification to email them. And that's
Yeah,
one of the things that I feel is important to look is to start looking into, and especially if you can automate it to where you don't have to do anything. That
yeah,
just puts you back in front, especially for businesses. Anytime you can reach out and remind them, "Hey, I'm here." Uh, a lot of times they get a new van and sit on it sometimes, and they're just waiting for a reminder to get it wrapped.
yeah, yeah. No, that makes sense. But yeah, no, the automation in that is huge. I think that's where you'll get the biggest results. It's helped with us. Like we've automated our whole like follow-up process and stuff like that. So it's
Yeah,
helped.
it takes a lot of time to get started, but once you do, I can see like I'm just starting that process, but it definitely helps, especially for me because I have post-it notes everywhere. I forget things pretty easily. I get
Mhm.
caught up doing installs, doing something. So having some of the work just happening is awesome.
Yeah.
All right, so we're coming up on an hour. So anything else you want to add before we end this?
Man, I don't think so. Other than just, I mean, for any wrap shop owner that's out there that is wanting to grow, obviously, systems is where it's at. You got to put it on paper, and you can't expect someone to be 100% of the worker that you are if you don't have any type of training or anything on paper for them to learn from. So yeah, I'd say that would be my last piece to any business owner on it.
Awesome. Thank you for joining us today. It's been great talking to you, sir.
Absolutely.
All right, you have a good day.
You too. See you, man.